Hi, I'm Hennah. Most of you know me from media, but now I want to come into your space and your living rooms and your life and share a different perspective. This show that's going to bring you several episodes in this series will be all about politics, economy, lifestyle change, and what's happening not just in our cities, but in the rural areas as well. This week we speak to Joseph Ealedona, Media Veteran, and Ganjiki and Rose Wayne. We spoke to Joseph Ealedona on the media industry, election-related violence, and the media issues in general.
And I've been involved in elections since coming out of the university. So in 1987 was the elections, and two elections after that, I was the political journalist at NBC. So we covered it for the NBC. 2012, I stood for the elections. 2017, I assisted a candidate in the elections. Just the recent elections, I went for elections again. In 1994, about there, I was suspended at the NBC for political reasons. And I was engaged by the Electoral Commission as the media advisor. So we planned the startup of the LPV system, and I was involved also with planning the elections as the communications advisor to the Electoral Commissioner, late Sir Andrew Trawan. So with that background, I must say that this could be one of the worst elections in all areas. So coming on the media side, my view is this. I think we didn't plan properly the coverage of it. I'm used to the earlier that we hold big workshops. At the NBC, we are trained to cover well. Our technical team is there ready to do good live coverage. We are bringing very experienced people to come in. And at that time, our journalism, if I may say, our standard was that at the level where acceptable to many. So our coverage was comprehensive, intelligent, knowing what to write about and knowing what to put out to the public. But today, with due respect to many good journalists, I just saw that our coverage was dismal. I just saw that our coverage was based more on the violence, when there was really no good coverage on the comprehensive coverage on the things that happen at the back. So I must say that our coverage was poor. We must start at the schools of journalism level. We must start there and bring in quality people to teach these young people wanting to be journalists. We had a system before, and I'm biased because I'm more NBC, so we come through a cadetship system. So before, it's just like the lawyers, you know. They come through this internship or whatever it is. So some time ago, we discussed trying to introduce a law that also sets the pathway like that, where journalists go through a cadetship program, and then we go out. But then it could be abused, so we decided against it, and we wanted the respective media houses or organizations to self-censor themselves. Let's start with the schools. Bring in good lecturers or experienced people to teach these young ones, come out and do some cadetship or internship, and then we go out. And within that pathway, we teach our young journalists those professional, ethical reporting, responsible reporting. Yes, Media Council represents everybody, including the workers there. and journalists. So it's in their part to do everything possible to protect and so for their integrity, to make sure that journalism training is there. So these are the two things. We always talk about trying also to start up the journalist association that deals directly with the interests of journalists. But it hasn't come to fruition yet. So, but the Media Council must take a big role. It is very important that the Media Council take a direct and a supportive role to build journalism. Society has gone to a level where we need to step up with it. Otherwise, we are left and we are slowly left behind. There are a lot more educated people now. So we in the media must step up also in our intelligence, in our education. We must understand the society and the systems of government. We may have to go and journalism maybe a second degree or first degree. We must have quality professional people nowadays. Because really all media organizations, news organizations, the flagship is the newsroom. People buy newspapers or turn on the TV to hear news. The others come just to support the news organization. So it's very important that newsrooms are looked after well. We employ people with quality. This lack of information going to the people, I feel that it is affecting our, approach to elections. People, there's lack of information all over the place. Total lack of information. So it's influencing our attitude. Out in the rural areas, people it's cult mentality there. They're just materialistic. You can talk about good things, but they will vote people who come with material things to give you. And I believe that it's just lack of information. People just don't know what's happening. Are we deliberately making sure that there is no development there? So people stay like that, then we can just come and feed them and they vote us. It's a really big thing, and I'm glad you did this program because I'm trying to write about it. Our media sector, okay, many of them are private, so they don't have a responsibility. We have to give information out, but state-owned, say NBC, MTV now. Truly, the government must put in more funding into this, so we roll out to the people. So there's information going out there, and they know what's happening politically and in all sectors. So when they vote properly. Democracy is failing very slowly. And the signs of this starts with the election. So I feel that we need to give more information. I felt it out there, right out in the remote islands of Milimbe, Roseanne Island, Sudest, Woodluck. These people, it's so sad when we can just roll out, I mean, I started the national television service. We started the rollouts, but we have stopped. And that's something I really think the government must invest in. In elections, biometric, but the information, our people's knowledge of what's happening. I really think if we push up our effort in bringing information out to our people, the country will change. So, thank you.
And we spoke to Ganjiki and Roseanne on the elections in general and their views on how these elections went.
I think it was nice to see all the women come out, candidates aligning with political parties, and then also the women voting for the women. It was nice while standing in line, we were discussing about who to vote for. And it's nice to hear that a lot of the women were voting for the women candidates. Despite the whatever that happened and everything that's going around, like all the negatives, and it seemed like the men were more vocal, stronger, doing their campaigns. I didn't really see the women come out to the communities, but I mean, the men were going around in the streets and, you know, saying all sorts of things. And also in public places and doing their rallies. Maybe I didn't see everyone doing their campaigning, rallies and all that, but it was nice to see the ladies using social media, especially Cassie and Sylvia. It was nice to just watch from home, just watching them on social media, Facebook, and just listening to how they were able to articulate, you know, some of their ideas on how to carry the country forward. It was nice to hear women doing that, and it's a different kind of feeling where we can now see that there's hope for the women to actually campaign in the proper way instead of being given free seats and just fight like how the men are fighting and then get in. Like, there are voters out there who would like to vote for you, but it's nice for you to persuade them to think and to agree with the way you're going to run the country or their electorate.
In terms of people being elected and whether they are the right people elected or not, that's not for me to say whether we are going to get a good outcome. But the process itself has been disappointing in that it could have been a lot better. And so what we've seen in the last few weeks has been lack of preparation, evidence of lack of preparation, and the lack of preparation is almost unforgivable because the Electoral Commission has 5 years to prepare, and you would think that in 5 years lessons would have been learned from the previous elections and you could have improved by now, and some of those very simple things that could have been done should have been done. So when we went through the elections, for us, when we went voting, things like the common roll and the names on the list were not sorted in time for the elections or the voting. So it was quite disappointing that such simple things were not prepared already, and we should have been just flowing smoothly by now. And in this day and age, you would think that the use of technology would have helped in the preparations and in the execution of the elections. So this is the funny thing about the PNG elections, that we think we're voting for a person who will build bridges, make roads, and patch all our potholes. That's the
infrastructure.
That's the thing that people are going into elections with. But when you read the Constitution and when you think about a member of parliament, nowhere in the Constitution does it say that they're supposed to do those things. So the majority of us in Papua New Guinea, we're voting for project managers and project deliverers. But the number one job of a politician or a member of parliament is to be a member of parliament. And the name member of parliament is both his title or her title and their job description. They, as members of parliament, the number one job is to make laws. And they make laws. Now, laws are the things that affect lives of Papua New Guineans. And they're the things that actually cause us to be frustrated about, everything that's going on. When you think about systems, when people complain about systems are products of law. They're products of law. So if you want to change the system, you need to get people in there who make laws differently, or make different laws, or make laws that will make a difference. But we have people going around campaigning, and you would have, if you had most of the politicians or the candidates who are nominating for or running for office, most of them, and I say most because some of them do know what their job is and they're campaigning properly, but most of them are campaigning on the things that are not within the job description of a member of parliament. And those are things like building bridges, building hospitals, and so on. They're not campaigning on how they're going to vote in parliament. Like, what's the ideology that they're going to drive as a lawmaker? They're not telling us, and we don't know. Some of them have some really good reform ideas about how the country should be run and should progress, and they're great. They're putting that out. But most of them are thinking, yeah, I'm going to come patch your potholes, and I'm going to buy coffins for all your house cries, and that's not their job. They're not supposed to do that. And for many members of parliament, it gets really frustrating for them, because they go into parliament and they realize they can't deliver the projects that they promised while they were on the campaign trail. And it's obviously they can't deliver it, because firstly, it's not their job to deliver it. Secondly, they don't have the money to deliver it. So what they end up doing is they become beggars. They go around begging the World Bank, AUSAID, IMF, whatever, who's out there. They beg them for grants. And of course, they come back and beg to the national government for the national piece of the national budget pie. So then the question is, okay, well, who built the roads and the bridges? That's the job of, and they are also members of parliament, but that's the job of the national government, the national executive. The national executive is the prime minister and all his ministers, and then the national government machinery. They're the ones who go out. So you have the Department of Works. They go out and they build roads. The Department of Health, they're supposed to go out and build hospitals. The Department of Education, they go out and they build schools. That's their job. So how does that connect now to elections? So when people elect members of parliament, you now have to look at them as what kind of laws they will make. That's number one. Second job of a member of parliament is, as soon as the first job, it's also the first thing that they will do is they will vote for a prime minister. Now, voting for a prime minister is probably the most significant decision that a member of parliament does, because the prime minister now drives the development agenda in the country. So he decides how many classrooms, or him amongst a cabinet, decide how many classrooms get built across the nation, how many hospitals get built across the nation, and so on. And then they come down and then they direct the national departments to go and deliver those jobs, those projects. The National Department of Health is not controlled by the ordinary members of parliament. It's controlled by the national government. So you have the national executive that's voted into the executive by out of members of parliament. So when people are voting, this is what I think should be in their minds. They should be understanding how the member of parliament or the candidates are going to vote in parliament. They should know, and the candidate should tell who they're going to support to become prime minister. That's an important campaign point, because people are not only voting for that particular member of parliament, they're going to be voting for who will be the prime minister. And when they're voting for who will be the prime minister, they're indirectly saying, we want the development agenda that this prime ministerial candidate is promoting. And so that's how people should be informed in their minds when they're voting. From people who run, candidates who run on the parties, you know that they're supporting their party leader to be the prime minister, or whoever the party is generally supporting. So, like, we know that, for example, in today's race, we know that National Alliance is supporting or aligned with Pangu. So we know that a vote for a National Alliance candidate is a vote for the Pangu leader to be prime minister. So that's how things should work. For independents, we don't know who they're going to vote for as prime minister. So when independents are campaigning, one of the key things that they should campaign for is that they should expose to the people who they're going to vote for as prime minister when they become members of parliament. That will give people the, people will be encouraged to vote for them or discouraged, however they think. Because members of parliament have to reflect the values of the people. And when you get members of parliament who don't expose these things, they don't say these things to the voters, then the people don't vote according to their values, and they can be easily swayed away, and they become focused on other things like points of voting that are not relevant to the member of parliament. So one of the things that I'm personally passionate about is that we need to teach our people exactly what the power of the vote means. And for 45 years now, we've been voting completely wrong.
I want to say something
And
about that.
we're going to continue to vote wrong if we don't educate ourselves on this. But that's just my opinion anyway.
I just have one last thing to say. Okay, so recently I've been asking young people, not only young people, but in my age group and maybe a few years older, most of the people that I talk with, they say they haven't registered on the common roll or electoral roll, and they're not bothered about voting. So I question them like, why aren't you concerned about your vote and your leader? And some of them say things like, it's very concerning. They say things like, oh, well, I don't care who wins, because whoever wins will end up being corrupt or will end up being, abuse the position he is, and just he won't care about whoever he's leading. So that really concerned me. So every time they say something like that, I remind them that it's their responsibility to elect the leaders that they want. Or if they're very vocal on Facebook about elections and not elections, but the way the country is run and the way the leaders are performing, I tell them to shut up and don't talk to me in my house, because you have no concern whatsoever on who you vote for or whether you are eligible to vote. So you have no say for the 5 years what happens. And it's all because it's your fault, as like the majority of the people who are voting are in that age group right now. We're wasting our time, our votes, like the chance of you voting a leader, you're just throwing it to someone who doesn't understand the system and doesn't understand how things work, when you could influence that change. So that's just my message to the young people. Don't be ignorant and irresponsible. Educate yourself. Know where you can register. Make sure you vote. Even if they say your name is not on the roll, whatever, just register. Make that move to make a change. Don't just sit down and expect things to get better when you're not worried about whether you're voting or not. I think that's irresponsible and very ignorant, especially for people who are educated as well. I just think that's a waste of manpower, of brain power. We're just wasting it. So Papua New Guineans should start to think differently and make your vote count. Register, make your vote count. Thank you, and that's all.
And thank you to my guests, Joseph Ealedona and the Waynes, for their input into this episode. Join us again next week for another edition of Hennah's Corner.